Unmute. There I am. Well, welcome everyone to our snack program. As you all know, we've been doing these throughout the pandemic, and I think they've actually been pretty fun. We've got a lot. We've really been a great way to highlight some of our members and some of the other things that are going on in the community. So today we welcome Beth Weirick, who's going to talk about what's going on downtown and with the Downtown BID. And next week, don't tune in on Thursday noon. We're going to have a happy hour at 5 p.m. By popular demand from our members. So if you have questions of Beth, just submit your questions via the chat button, and I'll keep an eye out, or Mary will keep an eye out, or somebody will find them. So with no further ado, I will introduce Beth Weirick. She is definitely the head cheerleader and CEO of Milwaukee's Downtown Business Improvement District. She's been with them since its inception in 1998 when she was 13 years old. She has more than 25 years of management experience in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. And as a downtown resident for probably more than 25 years now, I have really seen the results of Beth's work in making downtown such a great place to work, but also a great place to live in a special community. The BID is 150 square blocks, and she oversees keeping it clean, safe, and friendly with public service ambassadors, clean sweep, graffiti removal, all kinds of things. She has so many honors that I can't possibly go through them all. I think we want to talk to Beth herself, but I will say one endorsement of what the kind of work that Beth and her staff do is I'm out every morning before 6 o'clock, and I see those clean sweep ambassadors out there doing their work at 6 o'clock in the morning. They are always cheerful, and they are always very helpful. In fact, I caught one at work about a week and a half ago in the middle of a snowstorm, sweeping, and that's the kind of organization that Beth leads, that has people who are out there willing to do their work and make downtown a better place for everybody. So take it away, Beth.
Thanks so much. It's so good to be here. I've been a Rotarian now for about a little over a year and a quarter, I think. And unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to meet many of you. Of course, many familiar faces here, so I'm so grateful. Michelle, are you going to be able to pull up? Oh, look at you. And we can run through these pretty quickly, Michelle. So I'm going to just spend the next 20 minutes just kind of giving you an update of how we have pivoted in downtown Milwaukee since the start of COVID, if you will, in March of 2020, and then talk about some of the initiatives that are ongoing. You can go to the next slide, Michelle. So for those of you who are not familiar with what Milwaukee Downtown BID 21 is, we are a business improvement district, and we're in the heart of downtown Milwaukee, and we are funded through voluntary assessments from nearly 500 commercial property owners. A lot of people do think that we're funded through Milwaukee tax base. We are funded by those commercial property owners that are located in our geographic boundaries. Next slide, Michelle. And so our mission really is that we lead and inspire believers in Milwaukee to engage in efforts that build downtown as the thriving, sustainable, innovative, and vibrant heart of the community. We have been around since 1998, and our vision is really that we are an economic catalyst and that we're a premier destination of choice, and that not only downtown, but really the city of Milwaukee becomes a renowned world-class city, adding value to the region and the state. We can actually, just on a high level, these are our priorities. We go through strategic planning every couple of years, and we find that, like everything in the world, our work has really been accelerated. And sometimes we feel like, wow, we've really checked those boxes. But primary focus really on being an economic development leader, really leveraging the collaboration of all of our partners, focused on next generation projects, including the HOP, Wisconsin Avenue initiatives, many initiatives like the Symphony Orchestra, the hotels that you see going up, of course, with a focus on growing our residential base as well. And then we are very, very focused on really harnessing the energy and vibrancy of our residents, our young professionals, and our downtown believers to position and always think about that succession plan in bringing future leaders to the forefront. And so then, of course, we really always want to be focused on creating a high quality of life environment with a focus on enhanced safety, security, managing our public spaces. And we do that through events, landscaping, lighting, and public art installation. So as you can imagine, being an organization that is so focused on convening people in large groups, we had to really pivot quickly to think about ways in which we were going to be responding to COVID-19. And so in March, you can go to the next slide, Michelle. So what we really did is we looked at the things that we were hearing from our consumers and our constituency of things that were important to them. And so Christine had referenced our Clean Soup ambassadors. And what we did is we utilized them to now, they were always out cleaning and picking up litter and garbage. But what we began to do is we really looked at what we could do to sanitize and clean high touch areas. We worked collaboratively with many, many of our peer cities across the country and looking at ways that we could, through this exercise of socially distancing, still do what we could to still create a feeling of connection in the community. We worked really diligently with city leadership on developing active streets. And then we redistributed all of our resources from in-person events to support all of our local bars, restaurants, and retailers through social media campaigns, really trying to encourage the public to continue to support those local businesses because they're the ones who really give us our characteristic and our flair and our vibrancy and our energy. Next slide. So some of the other ways that we responded to COVID-19 is we really focused, like many other businesses did. You know, we manage downtown as if it has a roof over it, and it does, the blue skies, right? But what we did is we created safety and sanitation protocols. Our ambassadors were deployed, and we deployed hand sanitation stations, social distancing signage that you see we're regularly updating and making sure that it's maintained and in good high visible locations. We altered our messaging in our downtown branding campaign. We created some great resource pages for our small businesses and for our constituency around COVID-19 resources that were available. And we developed a whole brand new approach of being able to keep our community engaged. And then along with all of that, and thank goodness for our digital platforms, we've been able to really engage in a lot of ongoing consumer research, as well as research with our key employers and our residents to really better understand how people were feeling and responding to what was happening with COVID. Next slide. So one of the things that we did is very early on, we did develop a survey to try to get a better understanding of when our workforce was going to be coming back. I don't think any of us ever expected it to take this long. So in mid-June, we kind of did a pulse check on when employers were planning on bringing employees back, and then we engaged in that survey again in late September. Our targeted sample was really of our downtown largest office buildings, which represented about 30% of our downtown workforce. So it was a little bit over 30,000 employees that represented. What it told us was that as of September 1st, this is of 2020, an estimated 32% of our employee base did in fact return to the office. We are seeing, and at that time, we saw that there conceivably could have been a much higher percentage of employees returning to the office by the end of first quarter now. However, anecdotally, what we're seeing is that that number is going to remain flat, maybe grow a little bit incrementally, but we're not going to see an enormous jump in that number, probably until summer and even going into fall. Next slide. We did release monthly polls from May to August to really gauge our consumers' perceptions of safety and changing habits amid the pandemic. We had over 4,000 responses, and it's been really good for us to really understand what is important to the consumer, and so that we can also share that information with our small businesses. Their top priority, and I don't think it's going to surprise any of you, was really safety measures that were being put in place, comfort with bars, restaurants, and then of course just the overall level of concern about the pandemic and the way in which businesses were responding to that. So of course we saw a big change in retail habits and dining habits, and we wanted to be responsive to that change. We did make sure that we provided all of this data to our downtown businesses, and we utilized it to really support our pivot in the safety implementations, such as the public sanitation and the cleaning of seats, picnic tables, benches, and high touch areas throughout downtown Milwaukee. You can go to the next slide. So, and then our core programs, next slide. We had our public service ambassadors. They're a different group of ambassadors than our Clean Soup ambassadors, and they've always been, as I call them, our walk-in concierges. So imagine how difficult it was for them, because these are really high energy personalities that love engaging with the public. They're typically out there giving out maps and brochures and guides, and we had to pivot their services, of course. They're masked, they're no longer out in teams. We no longer have group recalls or roll calls, but they are out there and they are providing that extra set of eyes and ears. And we still have 25,000 residents in downtown Milwaukee, along with about 30,000 daytime population of our workforce that is returned back there. So we do still have our public service ambassadors out there. We have a regular and ongoing communications with their downtown security network. They've really pivoted again during this pandemic. And again, they are now engaged in daily disinfection of the high touch surfaces. We took over the operations, if you will, and all the parks in downtown Milwaukee. We put out picnic tables and we put marine vinyl over those. And we are regularly picking up garbage and we're sanitizing those picnic tables. And we saw those picnic tables and those green spaces really heavily utilized by families and the downtown workforce, particularly during the more pleasant months. And it really gave people an opportunity to support our local restaurants, grab and go lunches, go outside, go somewhere where you felt safe, but still feel that connection to the community. Next slide, please. So this is just an image of our public service ambassador team. You wouldn't believe, well, maybe you would. There's lots of garbage still downtown, even during the pandemic, particularly with people doing the grab and go. Next slide. So our Clean Soup ambassadors, every day they are still out there. And I can tell you with the meltdown today, earlier today, I did a drive around and they're out there, they are panning and brooming. They're picking up the garbage that has been stuck and frozen in the snow. They're maintaining those public sanitation stations. They're still cleaning the picnic tables. They also help us with many of our installations and deinstallations and are very, very focused on, of course, keeping downtown very clean. So they're doing an amazing job. Next slide. We've been surprised that there have been a lot of graffiti tags and stickers that have been going on in downtown Milwaukee. Hopefully you haven't seen them, because our objective is to really eliminate them within 24 hours, whether it's removing the stickers or painting over or using a chemical cleanser to remove the tags off of buildings. And we have been really focused on making sure we're staying on top of that. Next slide. Our landscape crews have been doing a great job. I was so grateful. Our leadership, they could have made the decision to just pull all landscaping, just given that downtown is relatively so quiet. But we continue to do our plantings and we continue to really be focused on our public spaces, our third spaces, those areas in which people convene and congregate. And this past year, we transformed Postman Square with a new stone seat wall, old world brick pavers. We really continued to focus on those areas where our bars and restaurants were, and creating this active outdoor seating area. Many of you may have seen that we actually built planters that were on casters and room dividers, and helped create some outdoor settings for our bars and our restaurants so that people could really safely still support local businesses, but do it in a way in which they were socially distanced. So our core programs and projects are one of the things that has always been important to us, but continues to be important to us, particularly during the pandemic, and then particularly during these past several weeks, has been our homeless outreach coordinator. And Beth Lappin is an actual employee of Milwaukee County Housing, but we fund Beth's position through Milwaukee Downtown and through an initiative called Key to Change, where we do raise money to fund this full-time position. Beth has been phenomenal. She is out there 40 hours a week, working with our homeless constituency, making sure that they are safe, and doing everything that she can to ensure that they are getting the health benefits that they need, getting food, and making sure that they have opportunities to be provided with shelter. It's been really great. We've been able to help over 2,300 homeless Milwaukeeans that have now been placed into permanent supportive housing since we started this program in 2015. And just from September of 2019 through this past summer of 2020, we placed almost 460 individuals into permanent housing. And what we're seeing statistically is that 96% of those homeless individuals who have been placed into permanent housing are still there, and they're doing well. In addition to now Beth's full-time position, we just brought on board last week a full-time public service ambassador that Beth is training, so that when Beth is off on evenings and weekends, we can also follow the same protocols and make sure we're providing those really important services to our homeless individuals in downtown. The other thing that we've done through COVID is we recognized, and Christine, you were kind of talking about some of your adventures and enjoying green space in the city, is we took the opportunity to create a public art map so that people could just individually and on their own go out for walks and strolls and really enjoy all of the murals, monuments, and sculptures that we have in downtown Milwaukee. So you can filter murals, monuments, and sculptures, of course, Sculpture Milwaukee, River Sculpture, on this map on our website located at milwaukeedowntown.com. And we have found that it's getting a lot of traction as people are really looking for things to do outside. We've still been focused on all of our public art installations and murals. I hope that you've had a chance to see the Kindred Mural. We partnered with the Avenue on this mural that is located across the 2nd Street Skywalk. And the artist was just fabulous to work with. And it was fun because, again, it was during COVID and people saw this artist up on this lift across the street, creating this beautiful, happy, enjoyable art. And she had many conversations and interactions with the public along the way. And so if you haven't seen it, take a drive next time you're downtown on 2nd Street. We also worked with another local artist, Ken Brown, on another mural called The Hero in You. And we do have a downtown placemaking task force that selected Ken as the artist. And the theme of this artist was really saluting our downtown frontline heroes and essential workers during COVID-19. And this is located above the MacArthur Square parking structure. So if you're on Kilbourne and you're headed west town, from the east side of downtown, you can see this beautiful mural. The other thing that we did, and this has been a blast, is we've been engaged in these improvements to strengthen the connection between the historic Third Ward and downtown Milwaukee, and we call it Brighten the Passage. So for those of you who regularly go to the public market, you've probably seen our work in progress. What we've done is we engaged with our friends in the historic Third Ward and the public market, we brought on 4 artists who created beautiful, beautiful murals underneath I-794 on the pillars. And then we also just implemented some aesthetic lighting underneath there. And then on Valentine's Day weekend, we did some programming there as well, with just this beautiful ice sculpture where family members in their safe little bubbles could come down and enjoy the light show and could enjoy getting their photographs taken for Valentine's Day. These are just some of the images of the artists. I'm actually, this scarf that I'm wearing was designed by the Couto brothers. So the artists that did the mural on the top left of your screen. Next slide. So another project that we did, as you can imagine, and I'm not one to dwell on sadness or negativity, but we were all devastated. We were working so very hard in preparation of bringing the DNC here. And so a lot of our projects, of course, were not implemented, but one that was implemented was called the Road of Democracy. I hope that you saw this installation. We had 58 street pole banners that were installed on Water Street between Mason and Cherry Street, and then on Kilbourne Avenue between the Riverwalk and Broadway. And we worked with 2 phenomenal Milwaukee artists, Dasha Kelly, who is our poet laureate, and then Della Wells, who is this phenomenal artist. So Dasha wrote a poem for us called Of, and we utilized 7 different works of art by Della and then melded them together in telling the story about the road of democracy. And we partnered with Imagine MKE, the Milwaukee Arts Board, America's Black Holocaust Museum, and the Marcus Performing Arts Center. So Dasha is actually reading her poem, and you can get that on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Drops. You can also link to it from our website at MilwaukeeDowntown.com. But it was a beautiful and really compelling story, just in general, about what democracy means and what it represents. Next slide. We've been heavily engaged in landmark lighting, and I think it's more important than ever now. We see the excitement of people even gathering for the great work of Light the Hone, but then to be able to parlay the beautiful downtown skyline in celebration of a whole variety of things. So we created and administered this landmark lighting program during COVID-19, and by connecting lighting to celebrate many of our festivals that were canceled, and of course the inauguration and a whole variety of other things, we've been able to at least light up our city to show that the love is still there and the vibrancy and energy are still there. We also moved all of our in-person events into virtual events, including virtual PNC tunes at noon. So we actually did 10 concerts live over the lunch hour, and it was really actually kind of fun because the artists got to perform in a variety of different venues. They really enjoyed it, and then we created a Spotify playlist, and we couldn't believe how many people, well, I mean, we were hopeful for it, but people really were checking in and signing in, and we had great viewers, and a lot of people were sharing this as well. And a great way to still provide some revenue to our local artists and still create these connections in community. The other thing that I'd referenced earlier is we worked with the city of Milwaukee in implementing legislation that allowed our bars and restaurants to create outdoor dining establishments. And we were able to, with the help of some fabrication, create another 175 seats outside and aided over 10 downtown businesses. And we just got this extended active street. So when spring breaks, we can set out that outdoor dining again. The city just approved us to do that again through fall of 2021. On our marketing and branding, as you can imagine, we had to pivot that a little bit as well. So what we really began to focus on, instead of course, the call to action to bring people downtown, was to make a difference. We utilized our social media platforms to encourage local support of bars, restaurants, and retailers. And we continue to have ongoing promotions and contesting where individuals can show us and tell us about their support. And really not only support local businesses, but also support our retailers, and then feel that they're still able to convene in public, but do it safely. So our Make It Back campaign really pivoted into a really awesome campaign. As we were moving through 2020 with the pandemic, as well as the call for social justice and equity and inclusivity, we had a great time working with Imagine MKE and 88.9. I don't know how many of you have seen our campaign, and videos don't seem to work well in Zoom settings, but it's on our website. But there was a great song that was produced by a lot of local Milwaukee artists called Milwaukee Strong. So we utilized that music bed for our 15 and our 30-second radio and television spots. And I'm telling you, when you listen to it and when you see it, it is so true and genuine, authentic Milwaukee, of people just like really digging deep and persevering and making their way through this pandemic, and also making a statement about social justice and equity. These are just some of the images from the actual commercials themselves that showcase our businesses and our beautiful, beautiful Milwaukeeans. And then this is just some of our media, our digital billboards, as well as our static billboards. So the other thing that we did is we really spent a lot of time and effort and energy with our local team on identifying some guides for the consumer and promoting them through all of our digital platforms, where we were able to communicate on a regular basis with our consumer. Please support local business, make it back, do it safely. And these are the restaurants where you can get curbside, walk-in, online ordering, or contactless pickup. So those platforms, or those guides, are still available at MilwaukeeDowntown.com. Next slide. Our core events, again, for an organization that is focused on bringing people together, like physically in large spaces, it was difficult for us, but we really wanted to still do what we could to connect the community to downtown and to support all of those local businesses. We created a new initiative called Come Back Cuisine this past summer, where over 650 lunches were purchased or pledged from those employers that did have their employees coming back. And it was their way of supporting all the local restaurateurs that did reopen for lunches for that workforce. So that was a really great opportunity. Next slide, please. We also still held Downtown Employee Appreciation Week, which every year we have thousands and thousands and thousands of participants. We didn't want to just cancel it. So our team, of course, dug deep, and we innovated, and we pivoted, and we still were able to provide lots of contesting, lots of giveaways. It was really all focused on virtual and socially distanced activities for employees working remotely, and of course, working on site in downtown Milwaukee. And Holiday Lights Festival, boy, that was a tough one for us. But, we forged on, and we decorated the parks, and we decorated the streets. And we usually have an in-person jingle bus where thousands and thousands of Milwaukeeans come downtown, and they hop on the jingle bus, and they get cookies and cocoa and a really great narrated tour by our public service ambassadors. And again, we didn't want to cancel it. So we created virtual jingle bus tours. We still put the decorations up. We still put up Santa's mailbox. We didn't do our in-person Holiday Lights kickoff extravaganza, but we did partner with Channel 12 on a Holiday Lights best of kickoff. And we surprised everybody with this beautiful, wonderful drone show that was positioned over Lake Michigan with the city of Milwaukee as a backdrop. And we had over 1.3 million views of that on Facebook, really showcasing our beautiful city during the holidays. And then, of course, Dining Week. Typically, Dining Week is in the summer, but in our regular ongoing research from our restaurants and our bars, they told us they needed some help. They needed some help coming into first quarter. A lot of them, candidly, holding on by the skin of their teeth. So we decided to do a modified version of our summer Downtown Dining Week. It was really great. It was longer. It went from January 28th through February 7th. We had $13 lunches, $25 or $35 dinners, And then the other thing our restaurants did is they provided these family meal take and bake options. It was less aggressive pricing for the consumer, but it was still a win-win for our restaurants and our consumers. We had about 24 restaurants that participated. And I can tell you, some of these restaurateurs were calling me and literally crying because they finally felt alive again and connected with their consumers. And the other thing is that we engaged our consumers in ongoing surveys and research. And what we learned was our consumers were feeling safe. They were feeling secure. We had over 25,000 diners who came into downtown Milwaukee to dine in our socially distanced restaurants that had COVID-19 safety plans. We had thousands and thousands of individuals who were picking up meals to go curbside, and all of the ratings were from good to excellent, 97% on food, on experience, on feelings of safety, on environment, and just quality overall. So we will be launching Downtown Dining Week again in summer of this year. So looking ahead, again, this is just still, we're not back to normal. So you can go to the next slide. So winter activation, I hope that you've been out and about in downtown Milwaukee. We love to find ways to surprise and delight people who live there, who work there, who just want to go out and get a drive or get some fresh air and walk along the Riverwalk or walk throughout the streets or our parks in downtown Milwaukee. For those of you who haven't seen them yet, get to Cathedral Square Park. We did a great installation with an architect and urban designer, Jason Scrogan. It's called Massimals. And there's these series of 6 polar bears that we have uplit. In addition to that, we have been doing ice sculptures throughout a variety of locations in downtown Milwaukee. We had the bears at the Marcus Performing Arts Center. We had angel wings at the St. Kate and that Valentine's Day frame that I showed you earlier with Brighten the Passage. And it's really been great to see families and little groups of bubbles outside just enjoying and taking in everything that we have to offer in downtown Milwaukee. I was so excited because our leadership, our property owners, our board made $250,000 available for grants for our businesses who are open and who are pivoting and who are responding to COVID-19. We had over 70 businesses that just learned yesterday that they are receiving a grant that BID 21 is administering, and they can utilize these grant dollars for any type of business operation that allows them to keep their doors open and their staff paid until we get to the other side of COVID. So we say we're announcing recipients next month, but it's really going to be probably Monday, which I guess is next month. And then finally, we released a local winter lookbook, which really features our beautiful, beautiful models, Black and brown designers, Black and brown businesses in the industry. And you're going to be able to find this lookbook that really features designs and fashion and beauty on our website, MilwaukeeDowntown.com. And we are planning a fashion show for next year. And then we're updating the downtown master plan. I would love to have every Milwaukee Rotarian participate in that process. I'll be sure to get Mary all the information so that you can be part of designing the framework for downtown as we move forward. And then other things that we're working on is a dog park, of course, those third spaces, Cathedral Square enhancements, and we're going to continue to really focus on Riverwalk funding and just everything that we can to enhance everyone's quality of life experiences and engagement in the public sector in downtown. Framing the square at Cathedral Square Park, and I'm just going to go a little more rapidly, Michelle, just because I know we're at our deadline. And then you can watch for new and exciting lighting elements on Wisconsin Avenue with our skywalks. And then Pompey Square, we've been working with the Third Ward Association and the Pompey Square and Lady of Pompey Square church group. And we're expecting completion of beautiful enhancements at Pompey Square by summer of this year. Other initiatives include continuing our random acts of kindness to engage our community and continuing to focus on real estate opportunities in downtown, that summer downtown dining week, winter activation, bringing back those active streets. but most importantly, continuing to find innovative approaches that we can, in this really challenging time, continue to connect our community to our small businesses and continuing to connect community to downtown in general. So looking forward to seeing all of you in person soon, I hope. So sorry I went over a little bit, but I hope that you got something out of that.
Well, Beth, that was really amazing, all the work that you've continued to do so well since COVID. And in the chat so far, Kathy Eiley says, Beth is and has been a phenomenal leader at getting many different groups to deal with initiatives that improve downtown and the quality of life for the more vulnerable people in the area. Thank you, Beth. And I've know that as well. And Mark Stoddard, who I think had to drop off, said, thanks for all the great work you're doing, especially amid this incredibly difficult circumstance. He has to run, but it was really helpful. And John Wormuth, I think this was back at the beginning, when we were talking about disinfecting. Is disinfecting still as important as we thought it was a year ago, or are we less concerned about disinfecting services as we go forward? Or
well, everything, the CDC guidelines are still telling us, even as we are getting vaccinated, that we need to continue to mask and to wash our hands and disinfect and socially distance. So for us, we do find that people enjoy having the hand sanitation stations, and we're seeing that they're being used even in the winter months. So I guess it doesn't hurt, right?
So how are things going with the HOP, and what do we expect electric scooters to come back this summer?
So things are going well with the HOP, and you know, I think generally speaking, all public transportation is functioning differently than we've seen it function in the past. I do think from a perspective of connectivity, public transportation is always going to play a critical role. And I do believe we are going to see electric scooters revisit the streets of downtown Milwaukee. Quite a few different companies are reaching out to us, and of course, hoping that we will be advocates for scooters. I actually like them. I think whenever we can provide any kind of options for transit and connectivity, it's good. We just have to be safe and smart and put proper protocols into place.
Joanne Grunow says, Beth, your optimism and enthusiasm lift us all. So thank you. Chris, did you want to ask a question? Or anybody else while Chris is unmuting herself?
I'll jump in.
I got it.
Oh,
I got it. You know, considering the fact that that commercial properties pay for the bid, and residential properties don't. What is the long-term impact of the conversion of so many commercial buildings downtown into apartments, in terms of just your revenue stream, but also, as I think you saw my email the other day, the different kinds of demands in downtown when we have more people who own dogs, for example, and your staff is spending a lot more time cleaning up after irresponsible dog owners. But do you see that as a long-term issue, the conversion of commercial properties to residential?
Yeah, I think, and that is a great question, Christine. The upside is we're seeing new Class A office structures come online, like Northwestern Mutual, the BMO Tower, and soon the Couture, right? So that is adding value to the commercial property owners' assessments and property tax base. So we're actually seeing an increased value overall aggregately in assessed value for commercial properties. And we'll continue to see adaptive reuse of some of those, you know, D, C, and even B buildings into housing. And candidly, I hope more affordable housing and market rate housing, because I think the more diverse our downtown is, the stronger we are as a community. And I believe the more we make downtown accessible to individuals who otherwise typically in the past would not be able to live here, I think it just, all it does is it deepens and strengthens just the characteristic of our community. So I believe the commercial property owners that value will continue to go up even as we see adaptive reuse. And I welcome the growth of our residential base in downtown Milwaukee. I think that density is really critical. And, it's difficult for some people to imagine this, but we have a pandemic and we don't see as much activity downtown as we typically would. But I will tell you, there is still a war for talent. And when you look at where professionals want to be, they want to be in communities where they can live and they can work and they can play. And as Dr. Richard Florida likes to reference them, as 15-minute neighborhoods. Earlier Kent was talking about where he lives, everything is 2 blocks away. And, actually professionals love that. They love to be close to the grocery store and close to a place where they can see a live show and close to where they can, walk to the public market. So the more residential density we can bring to downtown, the more beneficial it is. But with that comes this need for these enhanced services. For those irresponsible dog owners who don't pick up after their dogs, our poor teams are picking up dog doo-doo, if you will, even on sidewalks. And it's really irritating, and we find ourselves trying to be kind and generous. And it's surprising when you see some professionals who just, for whatever reason, don't think they have to clean up after their dogs. We try to remind them professionally and gently. And we are, as you saw earlier, engaged in building that dog park under I-794. But again, these resources are being funded by our commercial property owners. And there are some that say, well, then why aren't the residential developers paying to support these services? So, believe me, that's an ongoing conversation that we have.
And it's about 12:40, so I think we're beginning to lose people, but we have a couple positive comments here from Jean Casey, who stopped off, who says, thank you, Beth, for this terrific presentation, for all you do. And Tony Franda says, as a worker in the Ladybug building, I can say that my coworkers and I really appreciate your efforts, and I look forward to seeing you at future Rotary events with all of this in the rearview mirror. And I think we probably have time for one more question. And Alex, did you have one?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I actually have 2 quick ones. One you can answer quick. One is, do the BID districts get together and share good ideas with each other?
Yes, go ahead.
And the second is, how do we bring new dollars into the economy? I'm thinking like tourism dollars from around the US or even like overseas, like Germany or whatever. What do you do advertising, or what's that angle?
Sure. So to answer your first question, we are extraordinarily collaborative with our other BID partners. Over the holiday season, and I couldn't cover all of this because of the limited time, we led an initiative called Make It Local. And you can go to makeitlocalmke.com. And we worked with 12 near downtown neighborhoods to help not only promote our local bars, restaurants, and businesses, but all of theirs as well. We meet regularly with the citywide NID and BID Council, and we are always sharing best practices with one another. I also belong to an organization called the International Downtown Association, and we are really all about best practices and making urban and Main Street America the best that it can be. So great question, Alex.
Cool.
And if you ever want to talk about it further, I'd be happy to. And then on your second question, remind me what it was again.
But what can we do to get outside dollars to come to Milwaukee, not just spend Milwaukee dollars on Milwaukee?
Yes, thank you. So we work I'm on the Visit Milwaukee board, and we also work very closely with M7, who is the regional leader on attracting and recruiting businesses to the area. And so it's interesting, the collaboration that happens is always beautiful. We just had a call with Jim Page last week. There has been an enormous influx of businesses moving into downtown Milwaukee. And even during the pandemic, people making decisions about coming into downtown Milwaukee. But we work with M7 on trying to understand those key factors that are important as companies are making decisions about where they want to locate. And again, it kind of goes back to the workforce and where the workforce wants to be. So we focus on making our environment in this three square mile area the best it can be. And then we parlay with Visit Milwaukee, who sells our community to conventions and leisure travelers, and with M7, who is selling our community to businesses, whether it's corporate headquarters or secondary locations. So collaboration is key. Standing shoulder to shoulder with our partners is really key, and being able to pivot and be responsive to the needs that we see out there is really key. And I'm really excited about the expansion of our convention facility, and I think it's going to bring a lot of business into the community. And Peggy Williams-Smith is doing a great job selling our city even during this pandemic, and she's the new president of Visit Milwaukee.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Beth. I think that we probably are all going to scoot here, but this has been really, really helpful. And we so much appreciate you doing this and you being a member of Rotary. And we hope to see you in Memorial Hall soon. And actually, we're hoping to bring Live at the Lakefront back in August. So fingers crossed for that,
Yeah. Well, my very best to all of you. I am very accessible and planted in front of the screen, unfortunately, more than I'd like to be, but looking forward to seeing all of you in person. 3-dimensional will be so lovely, won't it?
It will be. And I'll tell the people on Astor and Lions that you say hello.
Please send my love, especially that little baby.
That little baby.
Right.
He's so cute.
Yeah.
All right. Take good care.
All
Okay.
right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much, everyone, for your time.